The younger set, they like bombing, they like, you know, seeing the name up more and more and more, so tags get you a lot of fame. If you go out and you destroy the city with tags, you get a lot of fame. Not just for the young kids, but from everybody. If you go out like that and really go all out. If you go out and do the same thing with throw-ups, you still get respect. I mean, when you really get respect in writing is when you do the most, and when you do so much that people can't help but to see your name. You know, as you advance, you know, you want to be doing burners or really nice colored pieces, and the more you do that, you know, the same thing, the more you get respect. But always, you know, above all, what gets the most respect in writing is originality, you know? I think that's what really stands out in everybody's heads, or in writers' heads, as being a really important thing. Just be original.
The piece itself has a meaning. Every part of the piece tells a story. Like this piece right here, them other man Ahmed, you gotta stay focused in the midst of chaos. This character he did also is, you gotta have a strong woman, you gotta have your tools and equipment, and you gotta have love, because death is right around the corner.
An end-to-end burner is the side of a train painted from one end of the train to the other end of a train with colors, with a lot of style. When the word burner is used, it's something that burns. It's when your name is on fire, where it's almost like the best that you could possibly do it, like a masterpiece. Also, the name piece represents that type of painting, and that comes from the word masterpiece, which was used back in the days.
What was your territory?
Pretty much when I wrote, it was the end of the subway movement, so everybody wrote all over the city, or me and at least my crew. We definitely wrote all over the city and all over all the train lines. So I wasn't really stuck in one neighborhood. We were really trying to get our names up everywhere to really get noticed.
Okay. What was the best train line?
The best train line when I was writing was the B line, because that was one of the last lines and had one of the easiest places to paint. So in 1989, 1988, it had the most whole cars, the most trains that were painted, you know, top to bottom in its entirety. And there in like 1988, 89, a couple of entire trains pulled out filled with color burners. So it was a really exciting place to look at trains. And actually, if you lived on that line, you got to see some pretty incredible artwork back then.
Oh my God, I lived in Brooklyn. Everybody thought I was from Brooklyn. They're like, oh shit, Kel's from Brooklyn. And I was like, no, I was in the Bronx. You know what I'm saying? But I went to like almost every yard in Brooklyn, you know, like yard on Van Sicklen, the J yard, which is the East New York yard. I practically lived in that yard.
Was there one yard that was like notorious?
The J yard.
The J yard?
Yeah, East New York yard. Because it was multi-level, you know what I'm saying? There's like a lower half that was mostly kind of dead trains, and the upper half was real active. There was always pulling in a train or pulling out a train, and it was always like where it was mostly patrolled by the cops.
The one tunnel on the number one, now it's the number 1 and number 9 lines.
Was that your line?
That was my line. I grew up on 103rd and Broadway, so you know, you're just, you know, you're indigenous to your local line. That's how it happens, you know. But before I ever went public, you know, there was a year where I wrote in, you know, my bedroom or hallways, and I was kind of too embarrassed to take a style out in public until I really developed it.
I guess it was all three. It's writer, bomber, burner, because I would bomb with burners. I would do like whole trains that are really elaborate that were usually reserved for like under the window, smaller scale, you know, masterpieces. I would take and say, well, no, I don't want to do it under the window. I'll do the whole train, or 4 trains, or 5 trains. So I would go out like that.
Yeah. What's the most amount of trains you did? At once.
At once, I did about six cars.
How'd you have enough time to do that?
Work real fast.
Yeah.
Well, you work real fast and also improvise. You know, you start out with a game plan, and you know, as time went on, and that game plan just became on the minute. Okay, it's on. Here's 50 cans, do it. You know, and at that point, we start with a game plan, and once the game plan or that agenda was achieved, then we turn around and say, okay, there's 50 or 20 cans extra. Got to do something. I don't want to leave there walking with paint. I want to use every single can. So then I just, out of the top of my head, would just draw things.
Why do you think they chose spray paint cans?
Originally, kids, when they started writing, didn't choose spray cans. They chose markers, because markers were the cheapest and most accessible thing for kids to write their names with. So when you really look at early graffiti, most of the pictures of it are early marker tags.
Did people used to make markers?
Yeah.
How do you
Oh
make
yeah,
them
band roll-on was a big one.
How do you
Band
do
roll-on,
that?
the little glass bottle, you tape it up with black tape, you pull out the contents, you stick some cotton swabs or cotton balls, and fill it with ink, and take the erasers from school, and chop off the strips on the side, and that's your tip.
The next step was spray paint tags because they were more permanent, and there was a lot of hardware stores in the neighborhood, and it was easy to steal that stuff, you know. Spray paint was easily accessible in the sense that there was a lot of places to get it, and it was free, you know. So it was a natural transgression. Then as soon as kids found out that they could combine some colors and make things a little bit bigger, they started using more than 1 can, 2, 3 cans. And then when they started to get more open, they started using 5 or 7 cans to write, you know, their name once. So it was a natural, you know, progression, and it actually became more of, as it grew, or as kids got more into using the tools to paint their names, it became more and more artistic.
The way you got paint would depend on like your status. You know what I'm saying? It's like I got to a point where I didn't have to rack paint. I didn't have to go out and put myself in danger of like stealing paint, nothing like that, because I developed myself to such a point where I became influential in like designing names and styles for other writers. And in turn for them getting those services or privileges from me, they'd have to give me paint.
And that doesn't seem like the easiest of mediums. I mean, it's kind of a wide spray. I mean, what type of tools do they have at their disposal to sort of make straight lines, and how do they do that sort of stuff?
Sure. Well, back in the days, there weren't really places where you can go buy spray paint caps. Now you can go into stores and buy them.
What was your favorite cap?
Oh, there was a round Jiffone. It worked the best on a Red Devil spray can. It gave us a really consistent, juicy, kind of like thick, round spray. And it just filled like 2 strokes and everything was filled in really opaque. It's like the best.
Okay.
I don't think they make them anymore though.
How it used to be was that you'd have to really go out there and experiment. Most early writers, you know, really a little bit jealous or a little bit angry at the tools that are available now, because when they were painting, there was only 1 cap, the skinny cap that came with the can. And they quickly discovered other caps. And what you'd have to do is you'd have to go to hardware stores or convenience stores or supermarkets and open up spray and starch, or, you know, town and country cans, all different kinds of cans of spray, and take off the tops. You know, and you take off the caps and you pocket them, and you have different kinds of sprays, furniture sprays or things like that work really well and give you fat tips or give you medium-sized tips, cleaner tips, you know, chisel tips. So that's how people used to get them. What happened later on in the late 80s, you know, writers, being as inventive as they are, started to call up the tip manufacturers and buy them in bulk, you know? And so they started their little businesses selling tips. And today there's a lot of writers that go about it and are actual wholesalers or distributors to hip-hop shops that carry all these tips. Tips that range from really skinny tips, they give you really clean, crisp lines, to tips that are super fat jumbo tips that can fill in maybe a 6-inch wide space, you know, in one spray. So, you know, the usefulness now is it makes painting a lot easier. You know, it makes painting a lot faster. But, you know, now they're regularly available, and kids aren't really going out there and stealing them anymore.